read the New International Version, Mark 10, verse number 46. And God's word declares, then they came to Jericho. As Jesus and his disciples, together with a large crowd, were leaving the city, a blind man, Bartimaeus, which means son of Timaeus, was sitting by the roadside begging. When he heard that it was Jesus of Nazareth, he began to shout, Jesus, son of David, have mercy on me. Anybody need mercy this morning? Many rebuked him and told him to be quiet, but he shouted all the more, Son of David, have mercy on me. Jesus stopped and said, call him. So they called to the blind man, cheer up. People are funny, boy. On your feet, he's calling you. That could preach all by itself. Be quiet. Oh, cheer up. He's on your feet. Now he's calling you. Verse 50, throwing his cloak aside, he jumped to his feet and came to Jesus. Verse 51, what do you want me to do for you? Jesus asked. The blind man said, Rabbi, I want to see. Verse 52, go, said Jesus, your faith has healed you. Immediately he received his sight and followed Jesus along the road. Let all of God's people say amen. Look at verse number 51. What a question. What do you want me to do for you? What a question. If Jesus asked you that question this morning, how would you respond? What do you want me to do for you? All the things this man could have asked for. I want to use his response as a title for our message this morning. He replies, I want to see. I want to see. I want to see. Father, we declare that your word is blessed in our hearing and in our reading and in our doing. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen. On your way to your seat, say, I want to see. I want to see. You can be seated. Thank you so much, ushers, for what you do. I want to see. I want to see. The events in Mark 10 occurred probably as Jesus was on the road between, I think this is important to mention, between Old Jericho and New Jericho. These events happened as Jesus was on the road, probably between Old Jericho and the New Jericho. So depending on what gospel writer you read, this story can be found in 3 of the 4 gospels. Matthew, Mark, and Luke, all 3 have this story of Jesus healing blind Bartimaeus. Matthew mentions 2 people, but Mark is probably focusing more so on his original audience in his writings, and they would be familiar with Bartimaeus. If not Bartimaeus, his father Timaeus. And so his emphasis is on one of the blind men, blind Bartimaeus, and that's what we'll focus on today since we're in Mark. But nonetheless, there were 2, but Mark's emphasis is on one, blind Bartimaeus. But this story is found in all 3 of the Gospels, and depending on which Gospel you read, one will say they are coming out of Jericho, and the other saying they're going into Jericho. And of course, like anyone knows, people who find a reason to not want to believe the scriptures, they say that that's inconsistent and it proves that the Bible is not divinely inspired. But they don't know the history of everything. You could be coming out of Jericho and into Jericho because there was the initial Jericho where Joshua, the successor to Moses, the son of Nun, led the people in battle. They shouted and the walls of Jericho came tumbling down. That's one Jericho, the Jericho where Elijah visits before he goes to heaven. The Jericho where Rahab met the spies. That is one Jericho, but then there's also another Jericho. There's the New Testament Jericho. And the New Testament Jericho is where Herod the Great built one of his winter homes. It was a beautiful place. And so the same Herod the Great that tried to kill Jesus early in his life when he was being born, that Herod the Great, he makes this place famous for being a place of palaces and swimming pools and all of these wonderful things. And so you could be coming out of the old Jericho, Joshua's Jericho, and yet coming into Jericho, the new Jericho made by Herod the Great. And so I thought it was interesting to mention that because if you look at it closely, Joshua is conquering one Jericho, but yet Jesus is conquering another. Joshua, I could preach all by itself. That could be a totally separate sermon. I'll resist the urge, but I'll just mention it. How Joshua tore down one set of Jericho walls naturally with the natural sound of noise and shouting, and they go into battle. Jesus, nonetheless, has to tear down this new Jericho spiritually. I also find it interesting that this is the last miracle mentioned in the Gospel of Mark before Jesus goes to be crucified. And I find it so interesting that Jesus, if you look at it very close and just the irony of it is just beautiful, how Jesus early in his life is running from Herod the Great to live. But later on in his life, after this miracle, he's going to be trying to convince Herod Antipas to die. That is so powerful. These are not the same Herods by the time we get to the end of the story. At the beginning of the story, it's Herod the Great that wants to kill Jesus. By the time we get to Jesus' crucifixion, it's Herod's son, Herod Antipas. And one is trying to kill him, and one is trying to let him live. If you look at the story, it's very interesting how they're going back and forth. No, he's yours, Pilate says. Herod says, no, he's not in my jurisdiction. He's yours. One could mess up the plan if he kills him before time. And the other could mess up the plan if he allows him to live and not die. I just thought the irony, the interesting fact, how you're fighting the daddy and the son. The interesting fact of how Jesus' forefathers, Joshua, is trying to tear down one Jericho wall, and Jesus is in the process of spiritually tearing down another. All of this is on the road to crucifixion as Jesus encounters blind Bartimaeus, son of Timaeus. And Jesus performed many miracles. I believe I told you before, he performed about 40. But the one that seems to come up over and over again is Jesus opening blinded eyes. 6 of his 40 miracles recorded in all of Scripture have to do with Jesus opening the eyes of blind men. Of all the miracles that they could have mentioned, they could have used, don't assume that everything we have is what Jesus has done. The Bible even lets us know so much. John says at the end of his gospel, if I were to mention everything Jesus did, I wouldn't have enough books in all of the world. He uses this hyperbolic language to say Jesus did a lot in 3 years. This is why you don't need to hang your head down if you feel like you're behind. You can come back, and you can come back quickly. You don't need a lot of time to do what you need to get done for God. If God, I'm already halfway done. Y'all better catch up quick. If God has foreordained for you to do something, you don't need a lot of time. Jesus in 3 years did things that we are still talking about 2,000 years later. He didn't even need enough time to get a master's degree. He didn't have enough time to get a bachelor's degree. I'm not against education, but I'm just saying 3 years. That's just a certificate program. Jesus just said, I can accomplish a lot in just a little bit of time. In 3 years, I can get 12 men to follow me, train them up, lose one, gain another one, fill them with the Spirit, turn the world upside down, all in just 3 years, hang on a cross, come back to life in just 3 years. So Jesus does all of these things, and one miracle we seem to see over and over again is Jesus opening blinded eyes. I think it's important to mention this. They don't, like I said, mention all of Jesus' miracles, just a few to prove a point. Kind of like a prosecuting attorney in the period of discovery. We don't need all this stuff. Just give me some key evidence that proves that Jesus is who he says he is. And this is the point of miracles. I don't want you to miss this. Jesus does all of these miracles, and the one we see over and over again is him opening blinded eyes. But the point of the miracles are, one, to glorify God, two, to prove that Jesus is who he says he is, and three, to help people. The point of miracles are to glorify God. The miracles that we see in Scripture are to glorify God, prove that Jesus is who he says he is, and three, to help people. Don't lose that now. I'm saying it in that order on purpose. You may want to write that down or remember it in that order, because if you don't get that order right, it's going to mess you up. Jesus' purposes of miracles are to glorify God, prove that he is who he says he is. He is God incarnate. He is the long-awaited Messiah. He is the Son of God. These miracles prove that. And then finally, number three, it's to help people. If I don't get that order right, that could be the very thing that's holding up my miracle. Because here's how we like to think. Our order is, number one, Jesus does miracle, number one, to help me. Our order's messed up. And this is why I want to make sure you get it in the right order. So we say, Jesus, do a miracle. Why? For no other reason but to help me. And the problem is with that is you got to understand, I mention this over and over again, but I got to preach on it one day. You got to understand we're dealing with a wise God. Like I said last week, we're dealing with an infinitely wise God. So in his wisdom, he's resourceful. In his wisdom, he's resourceful. So let me tell you probably how God thinks. God's thinking, why in my resourcefulness, in my wisdom, would I do something if it's only going to help you? That sounds crazy to us, I know, because we're radically individualistic in our Western society, in America. So oftentimes we can't get past our circle, me, mine, my family, my children, everything else, and we can't understand that we're a part of something much bigger. And so in God's thinking, he's saying, as a resourceful God, why would I bless you if the blessing only stops with you? If I'm not going to gain some type of glory out of this, or if somehow me blessing you is not going to be used to bless others, then why would I do it? It's just like, you don't even need to be spiritual. Just look at natural things. Just look at your money. Why would you invest in something where there's no return? If there's no return from the initial investment, why would you do it? If God is not going to get something out of giving you a miracle, besides you walking around happy saying, I got a miracle, why would he do it? And if you can answer the question of here is what God is going to get out of blessing me, that could be the very thing that's holding up what you believe you want God to do in your life. So I asked the question, what does God get from blessing you? What does he get from giving you a miracle? What does he get from healing that terminal diagnosis? What does he get from canceling that cancer? What does he get from getting your children up out of the hospital beds? Oh, y'all better hear me here this morning. I'll testify to this myself. I told you my baby son, my youngest son, baby Christian, was sick, and we all got the flu, and it just took us for a loop for about 10 days. Everybody had it, missed school for the whole week, didn't come into the office, touched everybody, and everybody was mostly able to kind of shake it off. The last little bit of it is kind of hanging on, but everybody's able to shake it off. But it really seemed to touch the baby. Temperature wasn't getting any better. Breathing wasn't getting any better. And so wives, women, you know how they are. I'm like, hey, it'll get better. We're praying for it. The wife was not sleeping, like, nah, we need to do something. I'm like, baby, it's all good. I'm going to tell her, go to sleep. Nah, the baby's up. She's going to be up. That's just how she is. She's not going to be able to sleep. She's not going to be able to do nothing. And so she said, let's take him into the hospital. Let's go into the emergency room. It's been about a week now. The temperature's still 102, 103. He's still coughing, still can't breathe. And so I called her when they first got to the emergency room. I took the other two. And then about 2 hours later, on their way, actually, I should mention this, on their way, I prayed. I said, God, grant us some favor when they get there. Don't let it be a line. Don't let anything go on. Let them get right to the doctor. And so I called her about 2 hours later. I hadn't heard anything. I said, where are you guys? How are you guys doing? She says, we still have not been seen yet. We're still in the emergency waiting room. And I said, wow. She said, we were here before all these children, but about 4 or 5 children came in, and they got priority over Christian, and so we're still waiting. And immediately I was like, dang. I thought my prayer kind of accomplished something, I kind of thought when I went before the Lord, like, God, favor them. You know how you really be feeling, favor them, God. Let them get to the front of the line. So I thought it was really like going to happen that way, But she said, there's still 4 or 5 children ahead of us. And then the thought came to me. I didn't think it on my own. I figured it had to be God. But the thought came to me, begin to pray for those 4 or 5 children. So I don't know who those children are, but I just begin to pray, God, those 4 or 5 children and any other children that are in Mary Bridge, Father, touch those children, blah, 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 all this thing. And then my wife texts me back. She said, I can stand to see a lot, but I can't stand to see children sick. And if you go to some parts of Mary Bridge, you will see some of the toughest things you've ever seen, some things that could even challenge your faith, challenge your belief. How can an infinitely wise and good God allow some of the suffering that you see in the children with all types of cancers, rare cancers, and all of these things? And God just began to convict me. Your prayer was solid. That's not the issue. But what if there's somebody who needs it more than you? And I understand you want a miracle, you want your son to do better, but you don't know what I have going on with baby so-and-so or little baby so-and-so across the city, across the town, across the state. And evidently, they look over your son and they look over this baby, and your son has some reasonable portion of health and strength, or else they wouldn't allow those children to go ahead of him. So perhaps you have your eye on the wrong thing. The miracle is not the fact that he's getting up out of the hospital bed. The miracle is the fact I've sustained him enough and give him a reasonable portion of health and strength. While I work on these 4 and 5 over here, I'll sustain yours over there. And if we don't get this in our thinking, we're going to miss how God moves. Because we say, God, pray, help, help, help me. And there could be so many more people affected. So miracles are given to us, first and foremost, to glorify God. I thought it was going to be an introductory point, but I need to stay here. Abraham, I am going to bless you. He didn't stop there, though, and you will be a blessing. Why would I bless you if I can't trust you to be a blessing? Do you receive something and it just stays with you? Or the second you receive it, are you thinking, who can I bless? Who can I help? Who needs it just as bad, if not worse? Can the blessing be multiplied around me? Can I be used as a blessing dispensary? Can God trust me to be a blessing vending machine? That when somebody makes a deposit in me, somebody else can come along and press a button and get something else out of me. Nothing that they earned, nothing that they worked for. I'm bigger than that. I'm better than that. Nothing they'll have to pay back. They won't even be able to do it. I'm just going to bless you because of who I am. So he performs this miracle of opening blinded eyes. And in our passage today, he is healing Bartimaeus, son of Timaeus. This story is so interesting. I'll just say a few points about it and I'll be done. Blind Bartimaeus is sitting by the roadside and he's begging. He's begging. Now watch this. This is so important. He can't see, but his begging is triggered by what he hears. He cannot see, but evidently this part of his body doesn't work, his eyes. So he's built systems to get around what doesn't work. So his begging is triggered by what he hears. He hears the sound and he hears commotion. And Mark is a little more concise in the story. Luke gives us some details in Luke 18 that Mark doesn't give us. So you'll see me mention some things and say, where is that in Mark? I'm talking about Luke and in Matthew. I kind of dance between all of the stories. But he hears something and he hears the crowd. And he starts asking, what in the world is going on? And they say, Jesus of Nazareth is passing by. Now he has systems in place. He hears a conversation. He hears perhaps footsteps. And normally when he hears conversations, footsteps, a group of people passing by, what does that trigger? It's time to get your cup. Because people are coming by. Who knows when they'll be by again. So let me get my cup. Let me get ready. I've put systems in place for what doesn't work. And so he hears the sound, and I'm sure he's probably thinking naturally, let me get my cup. I hear a crowd. Perhaps at this point in Jesus' ministry, he's very popular. Crowds are following him. Perhaps dozens, maybe hundreds. He's on this way to Jerusalem. He's getting ready to be crucified. Perhaps a crowd will probably not come this big again unless it's another annual feast where the people would be on the Jericho road trying to get to Jerusalem, and everybody would converge on Jerusalem for all of these celebrations. That's probably the next time he'll probably have a crowd this big. All of these people following Jesus. Now, he says, who is it? The people say, it's Jesus of Nazareth is passing by. Now, he's presented with two options. I have an opportunity to go after Jesus, or I could probably have one of the greatest paydays I've had in a long time. If everybody in the crowd just gives me one coin, I could probably have a big payday. So now I have an option. I can either go for Jesus, or I could possibly have the greatest payday that I've ever had. And here's what's on the line. If I choose wrong, I don't know when Jesus is going to be by this way again. So I better choose wisely, because if I don't, I could be here for the rest of my life. Don't think of our modern systems, no Social Security, no disability, nothing like that, not even any modern tools of walkers and wheelchairs and all of the things that we enjoy today. If he's blind, he is now dependent on people to help him, people to protect him, people to give him charity, so he better choose wisely. Because the wrong choice could mean that he stays here possibly for the rest of his life. Oh, I don't know who I'm talking to this morning in this room, this morning online. Somebody this word is for. As we stand on the verge, on the cusp of 2022, getting ready to step into 2023, somebody in this place is going to receive an opportunity. But the opportunity is going to force you to choose. Choose ye this day whom you will serve. It's going to make you choose. You're going to have to decide, do I want God or do I want the opportunity? Do I want Jesus or do I need more coin in my cup? Do I want Jesus or do I need a man? Do I want Jesus or do I need a woman? Do I want Jesus or do I need more hours on the job? Do I want Jesus or do I need some overtime? You are going to have to choose. Somebody say choose. I don't know when Jesus is going to be this way again. You're going to have to choose. I don't know when he's blowing by again. I don't know when he's walking through the area again. This is why every Sunday, whether I feel like it or not, whether I wake up sleepy, back hurt, toe hurt, foot hurt, leg hurt, we're getting up and we're going to church. I can have church by myself, I know. I can have church with my family, but it's nothing like when the collective body of Christ comes together, my prayers team with your prayers. Saturday isn't like Sunday. Wednesday isn't like Sunday. Tuesday isn't like Sunday. And I've got to be in the house because I don't know if Jesus is going to come waltzing through Jericho again. So I better put my cup down and shout, Jesus! Bartimaeus said, I'm going to make it my choice. Can I just skip to the end of the story? Bartimaeus said, I'm going to make my choice right now. He put his cup down and said, Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me. I've been dealing with this cup thing long enough. I've had some money. It'll get me through to the end of the month, but I'm going to need a little more. But if I can get Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me. I don't need any more hours. I don't need any more overtime. I need Jesus. I don't need any more money. I don't need another promotion. I need the water walking, healing, delivering, blind eye opening Jesus. Son of David, have mercy on me. Anybody in this room need Jesus this morning? I got about 3, 5, 6 minutes left. You better jump in while you can. Hop up on your feet and sit back down and shout, Jesus! You don't need Pastor Gabriel, you need Jesus. He doesn't have any power anyway. The power comes from Jesus. You don't need a man. You don't need a woman. You don't need them naturally. You need Jesus. Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me. And the Bible declares as soon as he opened his mouth, people began to say around him, be quiet. There will always be people that'll tell you to close your mouth, but you don't need what I need. This is what I love about Bartimaeus. He may have lost a lot of things, but he still had something left. Slap that neighbor and say, regardless of what you lost, you better hang on to one thing. Tell them whatever you do, you can lose it all, but don't lose your audacity. He had one thing left. He had audacity. He had the audacity to interrupt Jesus as he was going somewhere else. Whatever you do, don't lose your audacity. I was on social media. I was watching this lady. She had gone through all of these things. And I don't want to talk about, she went through all these horrible, bad things. And they were talking about her story of triumph and how she overcame all of these things. And she said, I lost a lot. But she said, I had one thing left, and that was audacity. And I made sure, she said, I was never going to lose my audacity. And she said, as long as I had my audacity, I was going to ask for help. And long story short, she got the help she needed. Lady's doing good. She's a millionaire doing all these things. And she tells her story now to people all around the world. And that's my word to you. Whatever you lose, don't lose your audacity. People will always give you a reason to close your mouth. People will always give you a reason to say they don't need to come. You gonna come to the altar again? They're coming down for prayer again. He, she, them. They come down for prayer every week because I haven't lost my audacity. I don't care what doctors say, we're not going to lose our audacity. My father has 3 kidneys in him. When it's all said and done, I declare he's going to have a 4th. I'm going to still keep praying because I have audacity. However many the body can take, just give him another one. God, I believe you. I'm not going to lose my audacity. If you allow the devil, he'll try to make a fool of you. He'll try to laugh at you at night in the dark and remind you how silly or how stupid you may look. And if I'm going to look stupid, I'm going to go ahead. If I'm going to be believed to be a fool, I might as well look like a fool and get what I need from God. Excuse me while I look like a fool. I'm going to jump. I'm going to scream. I'm going to yell. I'm going to beg. I'm going to claw. I'm going to fight to get whatever I need. So he said, Jesus, Son of David, take your seats. Have mercy on me. He went from holding a cup to now crying out. He went from holding a cup to now crying out. You should be able to see me walking up to that point. You're smart. He went from holding a cup to now crying out. Somebody in this room or online watching, you need to drop your cup and start crying out. You've been holding on to that cup too long. You don't need another cent in your hand. You need to cry out. As we're on the verge of 2022 going into 2023, drop your natural means and you need to cry out. Go in your closet and shut the door. Sit before God and begin to cry out. You don't need to rub elbows with anybody. You need to cry out. You don't need to sleep with anybody to get what you need. You need to cry out. You don't need to work more hours. You have worked your fingers to the bone. You need to cry out. You need another system, another plan, another idea. What you're doing ain't working. your cup and cry out. So it goes from holding this cup. Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me. The Bible says that Jesus calls to him and he says, come to me. Glory to God. And I focused so much in this story on one thing that I've missed some others. He hears people. He yells out for Jesus. When Jesus calls to him, the Bible says he throws aside his cloak and jumps to his feet. Glory to God. Let me give it to you again, just in case you missed it. He heard Jesus was coming by. He opened his mouth and said, have mercy on me. When Jesus said, bring him to me, he jumps to his feet and starts coming to Jesus. One more time for the Holy Spirit. He hears Jesus coming by. He opens his mouth and cries out, Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me. Jesus says, come to me. He jumps to his feet, the Bible said, throws his cloak aside and starts trying to make his way to Jesus. For so long in this story, that I focused on what didn't work, that I forgot to look at what did work. Oh, better hear me here. His hearing works. He heard something was going on. His mouth works. He opened up his mouth and said, Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me. He jumped to his feet. His leg works. Somebody in the room has been focusing all their time on what doesn't work. But God is not going to use what doesn't work to bless you and your family. God says, if I would have needed what doesn't work, I would have given it to you. But I'm going to use what works to bless your life. I don't need what I don't have, but everything that I have, God can use to bless my life. The miracle is always in what you have left. The miracle is not in what was taken away. The miracle is in what you have left. I'm going to say it one more time. The miracle is not in what you lost. The blessing is always in what you have left. If God has left you with something, he's given you enough to start over again. If God has allowed something to be taken, he's given you enough to start over again. I got to calm down here. I feel like preaching here this morning. I listen to economists right now. They're telling us what's on the horizon. The latest was, who was it? Bank of America's economist, leading economist, says we're going to have a downturn in the first quarter of the new year. He says on average we will lose 175,000 jobs a month. Oh, y'all don't hear what I'm saying. But the miracle is not in what we'll lose. The miracle will be what you have left. See, I've been trying to tell y'all, I see some of your faces, you're worried now. Because I'm trying to tell you, the miracle is not in what you're going to lose. Y'all see, I'm a different kind of prophet. I'm a different kind of, not everybody's not going to get a house and a car. Some are going to take some losses. But what I'm trying to get you to is how to hold on to your mind. Regardless of what you might lose. Anybody with any sense would have saw this coming years ago. You don't need to be in the depths of the spirit just to see what naturally was going to happen. We printed money for 2 years in a row. What did you think was going to happen? But the miracle is not in what you lose, but the miracle is in what you have left. I don't know, somebody may lose a job, but God will supply all of your needs. Somebody may lose a house, but he will be a shelter in the time of trouble. Somebody may lose a car, but Pierce Transit is going to come at the right time. You're going to learn how to take number 59, get off and transition to the 4, cut downtown to the 2, and he's going to supply all of your needs. I need some sanctified people inside of this church to touch that neighbor one more time and say, regardless of what you lose, go with what works. Your mouth still works. Your legs still work. Your hearing still works. Don't worry about your eyes. You may not see it now, but I heard the voice of the Lord say, come unto me, all ye that are weary and heavy laden, and I will give you rest. You don't need to see it. You just need to hear it. I heard the word of the Lord say, I will be with you when you pass through the waters. I heard the word of the Lord say, my God shall supply all of my needs. I heard the word of the Lord say, the Lord is my shepherd, and I shall lack nothing. He's going to make me to lie down in green pastures. He's going to lead me beside the right place to drink. If I go through dark seasons, he's yet and still with me. The Holy Spirit is going to comfort me. He's going to lay me down to sleep at night. Give me the peace that passes all understanding. It's going to guard my heart and my mind in Christ Jesus. I need some Bartimaeuses in the room to open up your mouth and say, I will trust. Y'all don't hear me here. Y'all know I'm an old Baptist boy at heart. I will trust. I need some trusting folk in the room to hop upon your feet. Third time, touch that neighbor and say, trust in the Lord until you die. Come hell or high water, come what may, regardless of what the president says. I will trust. So the Bible says that Jesus told Bartimaeus to come here. Oh, glory to God. Watch me here. Jesus said, call him. And they called Bartimaeus. They said, up on your feet. He's calling you. Up on your feet. He's calling you. Jesus said, come to me. Y'all got to understand how strange this sounds. Because what Jesus is asking him to do are behaviors of somebody who has sight, but he doesn't have any sight yet. I can imagine in my mind's eye, he can't see. There's a crowd all around. Why doesn't he trip over somebody's feet in the process? Why doesn't he fall on the ground and stumble in the process? Why doesn't he walk into somebody and bump them in the process? So I can imagine that blind Bartimaeus looks a little silly coming to Jesus, only going by what he can hear, but he just can't see it. I want to preach to somebody who can hear something, but they just can't see it. You feel like you heard God, and he's drawing you out, but you still can't see anything yet. Can I tip to somebody this morning who can be honest and say, I hear things from time to time, but when I look around at my circumstance, I don't see much change yet. And I'm here to tell you, you're going to look silly for a time. You're going to look silly for a season, but just keep on walking. You're going to look a little strange, but just keep on walking. People are going to talk about you, but just keep on walking. People are going to say you're a fool, but just keep on walking. Get to Jesus. If I could just touch the hem of his garment, I don't care how silly I look, coming every single Sunday to the same group of people, but I'm going to keep on walking. I'm going to keep on preaching. I'm going to keep on praying. I don't know how silly you may look, singing the same songs every single Sunday, leading us into the presence of God. Sometimes we want to go, sometimes we don't, but you're going to sing it anyway. I don't need an usher in the room, an usher walking on the floor every single Sunday. A thankless job. Nobody seems to care. You're in charge of telling people how to go in and out orderly. Nobody seems to listen from time to time, but you got to keep on walking. Fourth time, slap that neighbor on the back of you and tell them, whatever you do, keep on walking. Regardless of what happens, keep on walking. But Luke gives us a detail that Mark doesn't give us. Luke lets me know that he leans on a few people as he's walking through. And I can imagine him walking and looking for help one last time. I don't know who this is for, but one last time. This is going to be the last time you're going to need help in that way. You've survived for years on other people, but you just need to declare as you go into your new year, this is the last time I'm going to need help like this. Oh, I don't know who this is for. You better start talking to yourself and say, self, this is the last time I'm going to need help like this. You may want to text a few people and say, I'm going to pay you that money back I owe you. But that was the last time I'm going to need help like that. You may want to call your child's father or mother and say, I love you, and I pray God's best for you, but this going to be the last time I'm going to need help like that. You just slept with the last person that you're ever going to sleep with to pay your rent. Oh, I'm in the house. You just rubbed the last elbow that you're ever going to need to rub to get you a job. Oh, see, I'm coming for holiness. I'm going to stomp that spirit out. This is the last time you're going to sell your body to anybody who don't have a ring on your finger. This is the last time. Because blind Bartimaeus' eyes are about to be open. And this is the last time I'm going to lean on somebody else for what I only can get from God. God has something that I won't have to steal for. God has something that I won't have to curse for. God has something that I won't have to pimp for. God has something that I don't have to sell drugs for. God has something that I don't have to steal. God has something that I won't have to step on anybody. What God has for me, it is for me. It's pressed down, shaken together, running over. what he doesn't know, I got to slow down, and what he doesn't know is when Jesus is calling him, he's revealing his future in seed form. He's having him exercise or show behaviors of someone who has sight before he even has sight. He has him engaging in behaviors of a man who has sight before he even has sight. And this is why some of us look silly, because from time to time we do behaviors like we got it, and we don't even have it yet. But they don't know you're not going by what you see. You're going by what you heard. And all I need to do is hear it. I don't need to see it. I don't know, glory to God. I just need to hear it. I hear the sound of the abundance of rain, Elijah said. He didn't see a cloud yet. When one did appear, it was the size of a man's hand. I don't go by what I see, what I hear. Faith is about hearing. Faith comes by hearing. And then once I hear right, what does the Bible say? I'll walk by. So I'm walking by not what I see, but what I heard. Says, come to me. Comes to Jesus. Stumbles around. Some people help him, perhaps a little bit. And sometimes you got to go even when you're blind. Go when you don't see it all. And he goes and he comes to Jesus. And I can imagine him standing before Jesus. Jesus says, what do you want me to do for you? What a question. If he were to ask you that question now, what would be your answer? What do you want me? I can do. The possibilities are endless. But if I had one thing, what do you want me to do for you? If he says money, that's good, but he's going to need some more. I don't care what you're going to need some more. If he says something natural, what I'm trying to say is we run after all these natural resources, but they run out. And I wasn't saying anything like that to try to scare you. We're about faith. We're not about fear. But I'm just not, I just love talking economy and business and things like that. And so I just didn't mean to mention it that way. But I'm not saying that to scare anybody. But what I'm trying to say is to get our focus back. Because we have all these natural resources we think we want and we need. But they all run out. And then when things don't go our way, we come running to God. And he's so gracious to us, he allows them to run out just so we'll come back to him. He'll bless us again, knowing how we're going to act once we get blessed. And he still blesses us anyway. I'm not just talking about you, I'm talking about me. Knowing how we're going to act. Prayer time gets a little shorter when money's good. Bible reading gets a little shorter when money. Come on, be honest with me, saints. Come on. Come on. When money was going good, things were a little, When they were pouring out those checks, it was hard to find some of the saints. And then when things run short, here they come. I was a member at one, I've been a member. I haven't seen him in 3-4 years. I was a member. You don't remember me? I'm not saying that to talk about it. I'm just trying to alert you to the reality. And I'm nice because I try to be like God. But I'm like, my goodness, I haven't seen this brother, this sister, you remember you did? Yeah, you did. I haven't seen this brother, but okay, we'll play along. How you doing? But this is how we do God. This is how we do God. And yet he sends his son Jesus anyway, wrapped in a manger, dies on the cross for our sins, knowing this is how we're going to do him. What kind of love is that? So he says, what do you want me to do with you? He says, Jesus, I want to see. For him in his natural sight, it opens the door to everything. He says, if I can see, I can get a job. I can do this, I can do that, whatever. I won't have to beg for the rest of my life if I could see. I pray like Paul that the eyes of your understanding would be open. Where his was naturally my desire, my request, my petition, my prayer of intercession for you, for the body of Christ, is that your eyes would be open and that you could see. You could see into the Spirit. You can pierce both realms. You could see into the darkness and see where the enemy is trying to attack. You can see into another realm and see where God is trying to move. You could see where he's trying to move in this next season. What's next? How do you want us to operate? What kind of prophetic insight can you give me, God, on the decisions I need to make? Not that it's all about money, but watch me here. The smartest people don't get rich when things are going good. The smartest people build their fortune when things go bad. While everybody's running around like a chicken with their head cut off, scared, the wisest people sit back and put their money in places that are down now. And they just cross their legs and just play the waiting game. Downturn in economies can open the door to make a lot of people rich. Just look at who has their eyes open and who buys what. Just watch some rich people. See who buys what. When things are going for pennies on the dollar and everybody's first inclination is to hold on to what they have. And the wisest people say, I'm going to get that right there. That is worth nothing right now. Everybody's selling that stock, that one right there, for pennies on the dollar. It's down right now. It's worth nothing. I'm going to get that one right there. I'm not going to tell anyone's business. I was speaking with a member of our church, and I'm done. It's 11:49. I'm done. I was speaking with a member of our church, and I want to tell their business. They were telling me how God has so richly blessed them and listening to their story. And they were talking about how they would use all of their bonuses that they would receive in their military service, and they would invest it. They wouldn't touch it. They would invest it. And so he said, I got in on the ground floor of Microsoft when it was only about $28 a share. Now Microsoft is worth about $265, $270 a share. He says I own about 750 shares of Microsoft. He said, I got in on the ground floor. I pray that you could see. That you could see it before it hits. That you could see it before it blows up. That you could see it before it's big. I'm not talking about money. I'm talking about kingdom right now. So that way, once you are blessed, God can use you to bless the world. That your eyes would be open to see where economies are moving, to see where things are shifting, to see where jobs are opening, to see where commerce is taking place. Put down your cup and cry out that God would open your eyes. God, I want to see. As we close this year out and go into another one, God, I want to see. This was Solomon's request at its core. God came to him and said, you can have anything you want. What do you want me to do for you? He asked for basically the same thing. He said, give me wisdom. In other words, depth of insight. And he uses the wisdom that he gains in a court case right after that. And this gives him world renown and fame because he could see. He could see past this woman's initial request and see into her heart. And see, she cared nothing for this child. It was a child dispute. You know, the same ones we have today. No DNA test. He says, but I want to see. I ask for wisdom. I pray that you see. I pray for your natural resources, all those things, yes, absolutely. But I want to see. Open the eyes of my heart, Lord, that I may see you. Let's pray. Father, we thank you. We thank you. We want to see. We want to see. Father, we want to see you. I pray in the name of Jesus, Holy Spirit, that you would give us a desire for you, a desire to see you. Above all else, Father, we want to see you. But in the meantime, till you give us that insight, I pray that we would walk by faith. As we have heard your word declared today, I pray that we would learn to walk by faith and not by sight. Not to put our trust in natural things that fade away in our earthly storehouses, Jesus said. But put our trust in things above, Christ where you dwell. Thank you, Father, for your goodness and your mercy toward us. We come like Bartimaeus. Have mercy on us. Have mercy on us. Bless these people as they leave this church today. Thank you, Father, that they've come to see you, not me, not anybody else. They've come to see you. And we declare that as they leave this place, that they'll leave with you, that they'll recognize that they are never alone. In Jesus' name, amen. I'll say this and I'm done. He cries out, Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me. He couldn't see naturally, but he could see something spiritually. When he declared that Jesus was the Son of David, he was able to connect Jesus to the messianic prophecy that he is the Son of David. So where he was blind naturally, his eyes were open spiritually. And he could see things that Pharisees couldn't see. The religious elite, the Bible teachers of their day, he could see things that they couldn't see, though he was blind naturally. You don't need to preach to be able to see things spiritually. You don't need to have pastor in front of your name to see things spiritually. You don't need to have reverend, doc, prophet, prophetess, whatever that is. You just got to have a willingness for God to hear his voice, and God will begin to show you things. As these heads are bowed and these eyes are closed, if you're here, you're outside of relationship with Jesus Christ, or you're here and you need to come into relationship with this church, will you slip your hand up wherever you are?